Have you ever been disrespected by someone you care about? And your first instinct was to respond immediately, to defend yourself, or even lash out. What if I told you that your silence after being hurt could be more powerful than your words? Today, we're going to uncover why staying quiet after disrespect isn't weakness, it's strength, wisdom, and a pathway to peace. When someone disrespects you, the natural instinct is to fire back immediately. It's like a reflex. Someone says something hurtful, belittling, or unfair, and before you even think, words tumble out of your mouth, sometimes harsher than you intended. But what if I told you that the true mark of strength isn't found in your ability to respond quickly, but in your ability to pause, to step back, and to choose silence? Many people confuse silence with weakness. They think that if you don't defend yourself, you're letting someone walk all over you. But real strength isn't loud and it isn't reactive. Real strength is deliberate. Real strength is control. Groeschel often teaches that the measure of a person isn't found in how they react to praise, but in how they respond to criticism. When you're disrespected, the situation can feel personal. Your pride may feel wounded, your ego threatened, and your mind starts racing with all the clever comebacks you could say. And there's nothing wrong with feeling those things. Emotions themselves aren't wrong, but letting them dictate your immediate actions can lead to consequences you'll regret. Responding impulsively can escalate conflicts, damage relationships, and even tarnish your reputation. Silence, on the other hand, gives you control over the situation. It shows that you are bigger than the moment, that your identity is not defined by someone else's disrespect, and that you are choosing the higher road. There's a biblical principle embedded in this idea, something Craig often reflects on in his talks. A soft answer turns away wrath. It's not suggesting passivity or allowing people to walk all over you. It's about exercising self-mastery. When you remain silent in the face of disrespect, you are literally exercising the muscle of self-control, which is stronger than any verbal retaliation. Silence is a deliberate choice, and it takes courage to stay quiet when the world screams at you to react. Imagine the power in that. While everyone else is caught up in the chaos of emotions, you are calm, composed, and intentional. That's real strength. Think about it in practical terms. In the workplace, for example, someone may make a snide comment during a meeting or take credit for your work. Your first thought might be to immediately correct them, to assert your position, or to embarrass them in front of others. But if you respond in anger, you risk looking unprofessional or impulsive. Instead, choosing silence allows you to process the situation. You can reflect, strategize, and determine the most effective way to address the disrespect without compromising your integrity. This isn't weakness, it's maturity, wisdom, and strategic thinking. Even in personal relationships, silence can be a powerful tool. When a spouse, friend, or family member says something hurtful, our initial reaction can often be defensive or retaliatory. Yet, if you pause and choose silence, you give yourself the opportunity to respond with clarity rather than emotion. Groeschel often emphasizes that the goal in relationships is not to win arguments, but to nurture understanding and unity. Silence doesn't mean ignoring the problem. It means approaching it with thoughtfulness rather than reaction. When you speak after reflection, your words carry weight because they are measured, intentional, and grounded in calmness rather than anger. Another layer to this is the internal transformation that happens when you practice silence. Every time you resist the urge to respond impulsively, you are training your mind and heart to rise above the immediate emotional reaction. Over time, this becomes a habit, a character trait. You begin to notice that the moments that used to trigger you no longer have the same grip. You're no longer a prisoner of others' words or actions. You've taken back control over your own emotions and responses. Groeschel often talks about spiritual and emotional resilience, and this is a perfect example. Silence in the face of disrespect strengthens your inner life in ways that outward expressions cannot. It's also important to understand the ripple effect of silence. When you don't respond to disrespect immediately, You give others the opportunity to see that your self-worth isn't dependent on their approval or criticism. People begin to recognize that you are someone who does not react out of pride or ego, but out of wisdom and self-discipline. That kind of strength is magnetic. It commands respect without demanding it. By staying quiet, you are demonstrating that your power doesn't come from your words alone, but from your ability to control yourself, to think before you act, and to rise above pettiness. Let's be honest, this is hard. It goes against every instinct we have as humans. We are wired to protect ourselves, to defend our honor, and to fight back when we feel wronged. But that's exactly why silence is such a powerful demonstration of strength. It is counterintuitive. It is against the natural impulse of the moment. And that is where true growth occurs. Craig Groeschel often reminds audiences that spiritual and emotional maturity is forged in the moments we resist what feels natural but isn't best. Choosing silence in response to disrespect is one of those moments. It's also worth noting that silence doesn't mean weakness in the eyes of God or others. In fact, many examples in Scripture and in the lives of wise leaders show that restraint and measured responses often lead to better outcomes. Leaders who respond impulsively frequently face regret, while those who exercise self-control gain influence, credibility, and trust. When you choose silence, you are aligning yourself with a principle that transcends the moment, a principle of measured response, inner strength, and wisdom that yields long-term results. Finally, responding in silence communicates a message without saying a single word. It shows that you are not easily provoked, that your identity isn't tied to someone else's opinion, and that you value wisdom over instant gratification. You are teaching others by example that maturity is measured by restraint and that real power comes from composure, not confrontation. Your reputation is one of the most valuable assets you have. It's something that cannot easily be repaired once it's damaged. When someone disrespects you, the temptation to respond immediately can feel overwhelming. That quick comeback, that sarcastic remark, or that sharp retort may give you temporary satisfaction, but the cost can be far greater than you realize. Responding impulsively can lead to regret, and in the eyes of others, it can make you appear reactive, petty, or even unprofessional. Craig Groeschel often emphasizes that life is about building a legacy, and legacy is constructed not in moments of comfort, but in moments of challenge. How you handle disrespect is a defining moment in that legacy. Choosing silence in the face of disrespect protects your character and ensures that your reputation remains intact. Think about the impact your words have when you respond in anger. They often carry a weight you cannot take back. A single harsh comment can overshadow years of integrity and kindness. People may remember your reaction far longer than they remember the offense itself. When you remain silent, you're actively protecting your personal brand, the way people perceive you and the credibility you've worked hard to build. This doesn't mean you are weak or passive. It means you understand that your long-term influence matters more than a momentary victory in an argument. Craig Groeschel consistently reminds audiences that true leaders are measured by how they handle conflict, not by how they win debates. Silence also gives you the opportunity to approach the situation with perspective. In the heat of the moment, emotions can cloud judgment, making it easy to say things you don't mean or to escalate the conflict unnecessarily. By pausing and choosing not to respond immediately, you are giving yourself time to reflect on the best way to protect your reputation while still addressing the disrespect if necessary. This is not about avoiding confrontation altogether. It's about approaching it wisely, strategically, and in a manner that aligns with your values. One of the most powerful aspects of silence is that it communicates strength without the need for words. When others see that you are not easily provoked, they begin to respect you in a different way. Your silence becomes a statement in itself. You are confident, composed, and in control. You are demonstrating that your worth is not defined by the opinions or actions of others. Craig often points out that people who are quick to retaliate are often enslaved to their emotions, while those who exercise restraint demonstrate freedom and mastery over themselves. Your silence can be louder and more impactful than any argument because it reflects maturity, dignity, and self-respect. It's also important to understand that your reputation is closely tied to relationships, both personal and professional. When you respond in anger, you risk damaging relationships that could have been salvaged or strengthened through patience and wisdom. Silence creates space for cooling down, for dialogue that is constructive rather than destructive, and for resolutions that maintain respect on both sides. Craig Groeschel emphasizes that relationships are more valuable than winning an argument. By choosing silence, you protect both your reputation and the relationships that contribute to your long-term success and happiness. Another layer to consider is the ripple effect of your response. People observe not just what you say, but how you react under pressure. In moments of disrespect, your response sets the tone for how others perceive you and how they will treat you in the future. Reacting impulsively can encourage disrespect or create a cycle of negativity, whereas choosing silence sets a standard of self-control and integrity. Craig frequently teaches that influence comes from consistency and character. By protecting your reputation through silence, you are influencing others by example, showing that dignity and respect are not negotiable, even in challenging situations. Silence also protects you internally. When you respond impulsively, you often carry the weight of regret afterward. Words spoken in anger can haunt you, causing anxiety, guilt, or shame. Choosing silence prevents this internal damage. It allows you to maintain peace of mind, clarity of thought, and emotional stability. Craig Groeschel often highlights the importance of aligning actions with values. When your responses reflect your core principles rather than fleeting emotions, you safeguard not only your external reputation, but also your inner integrity. Consider the workplace scenario, an unfair critique, a colleague taking credit for your work, or a subtle undermining comment. Responding defensively might feel satisfying, but it risks making you look petty or reactive. Silence, however, allows you to respond thoughtfully, documenting your work, addressing the issue privately, or presenting your perspective calmly and professionally. Over time, this measured approach strengthens your credibility and positions you as someone who handles conflict with wisdom and grace. People will notice and respect will follow. Craig Groeschel frequently reminds leaders that credibility is earned through consistent, composed action, not momentary victories. In personal relationships, the principle is just as vital. When a friend, family member, or partner disrespects you, the urge to react quickly is strong, but immediate retaliation can escalate tension and cause irreparable damage. By choosing silence, you protect not only your own dignity, but also the relationship itself. You create a space where understanding, empathy, and reconciliation are possible. Craig Groeschel often points out that maturity in relationships is measured by how well you navigate challenges, not by how quickly you assert yourself. Your silence can serve as a catalyst for healthier communication, allowing the relationship to survive and even thrive after moments of conflict. Finally, silence protects your reputation by giving you the opportunity to respond intentionally rather than emotionally. It allows you to craft a response that is measured, wise, and aligned with your values. By exercising restraint, you demonstrate that you are in control of your actions and your image. You are showing others that you are not defined by their disrespect, but by your own integrity, composure, and discernment. Craig Groeschel consistently teaches that a life of influence, respect, and lasting impact is built through intentional choices, not impulsive reactions. When someone disrespects you, your immediate emotional response can be intense. Anger, frustration, hurt, or even a desire for revenge often surge through your mind and body before you even realize it. Craig Groeschel often emphasizes that emotions themselves are not the problem. It's what we do with them that defines our character and impacts our relationships, careers, and personal growth. Processing your emotions before responding is not about suppressing how you feel. It's about giving yourself the time and space to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Silence provides that crucial pause, and it is in that pause that true wisdom is born. Emotions are powerful forces. They can cloud judgment, distort perception, and lead us to say or do things we later regret. When someone disrespects you, your mind may immediately create scenarios and justifications that fuel your desire to retaliate. You may rehearse comebacks, imagine embarrassing the other person, or plan your next move to set them straight. These mental rehearsals feel empowering in the moment, but if acted upon immediately, they can escalate conflict rather than resolve it. Craig Groeschel frequently teaches that the first step toward wisdom is self-awareness, recognizing your emotional state and intentionally deciding not to act immediately allows you to shift from a reactive mindset to a responsive mindset. Processing emotions before responding also helps clarify the situation itself. Often, the initial sting of disrespect can exaggerate the severity of the offense. We may interpret someone's words or actions more negatively than they intended. By pausing and reflecting, you create a mental space to examine what actually happened, why it happened, and how best to address it if necessary. Silence becomes a tool for discernment, allowing you to separate perception from reality. Craig Groeschel frequently encourages people to see situations from a higher perspective, understanding that clarity often comes not in the heat of the moment, but in the quiet moments of reflection afterward. Another critical aspect of processing your emotions is understanding your triggers. Everyone has emotional hot buttons, specific situations, words, or actions that evoke strong reactions. When someone disrespects you, it often triggers a deeper emotional wound, a past experience, or a fear that you may not even be fully aware of. By taking the time to process your emotions in silence, you gain insight into why you reacted the way you did. This self-awareness is not just valuable for handling the current situation, it equips you to handle future conflicts with greater maturity and resilience. Craig Groeschel frequently emphasizes the importance of emotional intelligence, noting that understanding yourself is the first step in influencing others positively and living a life of integrity. Processing your emotions also creates space for empathy and understanding. Even when someone's words or actions are hurtful, pausing allows you to consider the broader context of their behavior. Are they under stress? Are they projecting their own insecurities? Are they unaware of the impact of their actions? This is not about excusing bad behavior, but about gaining perspective. By understanding the why behind someone's disrespect, you can respond in a way that de-escalates the situation and fosters constructive dialogue rather than conflict. Craig Groeschel often highlights that empathy is a sign of strength, not weakness, and that understanding others' motivations can transform how we interact with them. Silence also allows for emotional regulation, which is critical for maintaining integrity and protecting your relationships. When we act on raw emotions, we often say or do things that damage trust, credibility, and connection. By processing your emotions first, you give yourself the ability to respond from a place of wisdom, not impulse. This doesn't mean avoiding confrontation when necessary. It means engaging with clarity, purpose, and a calm demeanor. Craig Groeschel consistently points out that the goal is not to suppress feelings, but to channel them in ways that are constructive, respectful, and aligned with your values. Additionally, processing emotions provides a sense of control. When someone disrespects you, it can feel as if they have power over your emotional state. Choosing silence and taking time to process your emotions is an act of reclaiming that power. You decide how to respond, when to respond, and what impact your response will have. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's behavior. You are responding from a position of strength, clarity, and intentionality. Craig often emphasizes that leaders and influencers gain authority not through domination, but through the ability to manage themselves in moments of pressure, tension, or conflict. This practice of processing emotions also supports long-term mental and emotional health. Constantly reacting to disrespect and anger can lead to stress, resentment, and burnout. It keeps you locked in a cycle of negativity that affects your overall well-being and your relationships with others. Silence and reflection provide a break from this cycle. They give you the opportunity to release initial emotional tension, to regain perspective, and to approach the situation with calmness and thoughtfulness. Craig Groeschel frequently highlights that spiritual and emotional resilience is built through intentional practices that protect the heart and mind from unnecessary turmoil. It's also important to recognize that processing your emotions doesn't necessarily mean you will respond verbally at all. In some cases, after reflection, you may decide that no response is required. The initial instinct to react is often driven by ego, pride, or the desire to win. By processing your emotions, you can distinguish between situations that require engagement and those that are better left alone. Silence can, in many instances, be the most powerful response because it preserves your dignity, protects your reputation, and demonstrates emotional maturity. Craig Groeschel often teaches that wisdom lies in discernment, understanding which battles are worth fighting and which are better left in God's hands or handled with quiet composure. Finally, processing your emotions before responding allows you to respond in alignment with your values. Your words and actions should reflect who you are, not what someone else provokes in you. Craig Groeschel consistently reminds audiences that living a life of integrity means making decisions that honor your principles, even when it is difficult. Silence is not passivity. It is a deliberate choice to ensure that your response is intentional, constructive, and reflective of your true character. Conflict is one of the most common and unavoidable aspects of life. Whether it arises at work, at home, or in social settings, disagreements and disrespectful behavior can trigger strong emotional reactions. Craig Groeschel often emphasizes that how we respond in moments of tension defines both the outcome of the situation and the quality of our relationships. Silence, when chosen intentionally, is one of the most powerful tools for de-escalating conflict. It is counterintuitive because our first instinct is often to respond immediately, to defend ourselves, or to assert our point of view. But reacting impulsively rarely resolves the problem. Instead, it often escalates the tension, amplifies misunderstandings, and can even damage relationships beyond repair. Choosing silence, however, gives us the space to lower the emotional temperature, create clarity, and respond with wisdom rather than anger. When someone disrespects you, the immediate impulse is to defend your dignity, correct the misperception, or retaliate in some way. These reactions are natural. They come from a desire to protect ourselves and our self-image. But acting on impulse can turn a small conflict into a full-blown crisis. Silence interrupts the natural escalation process. By pausing instead of reacting, you remove fuel from the fire. You prevent the cycle of retaliation from taking over and give everyone involved the chance to regain composure. Craig Groeschel often stresses that true leadership is shown not in avoiding conflict, but in navigating it with grace, calm, and intentionality. Silence in these moments demonstrates that you are in control of yourself, not enslaved to the chaos of the moment. De-escalation through silence works because it changes the dynamic of the interaction. When one person reacts angrily, it often triggers a defensive or aggressive response from the other. This is the classic fight or flight pattern where both parties become emotionally charged and less capable of rational thinking. By choosing silence, you disrupt this pattern. Your calm and measured response, or even non-response, can help the other person pause as well. It introduces an element of unpredictability that encourages reflection instead of reaction. Craig Groeschel frequently emphasizes that emotional intelligence is key to influencing outcomes. And one of the highest forms of emotional intelligence is knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Silence also creates space for reflection. When tensions are high, neither party is thinking clearly. Words spoken in anger often escalate conflicts, damage relationships, and create misunderstandings that can last for years. By staying quiet, you allow yourself and the other person time to think, process emotions, and gain perspective. This pause can lead to a more productive conversation later, where issues are addressed calmly, respectfully, and constructively. Craig Groeschel often teaches that timing is critical in communication, and that waiting for the right moment to respond can be more powerful than responding immediately. In addition, silence communicates restraint and self-control. When someone is being disrespectful, the world often expects a quick reaction. Choosing not to react immediately sends a clear signal that you are not easily provoked. Your composure becomes a stabilizing force in the situation. People notice when someone responds with wisdom rather than impulsivity. Your silence can command respect and authority, often more than any verbal argument ever could. Craig Groeschel consistently reminds audiences that influence and respect are earned through character and composure, not through loudness or aggression. Another important aspect of silence in de-escalating conflict is that it allows for empathy to emerge. When you are not focused on crafting your immediate response, you have the mental and emotional space to consider the perspective of the other person. Why did they act that way? What pressures or experiences might have influenced their behavior? This is not about excusing disrespect, but about understanding the full context. By cultivating empathy through silence, you are better positioned to respond in a way that addresses the situation without creating further harm. Craig Groeschel often points out that empathy and understanding are essential for resolving conflicts and building stronger, more resilient relationships. Silence also protects your long-term interests. Reacting impulsively may feel satisfying in the short term, but it often has consequences that extend far beyond the immediate conflict. Relationships can be strained, professional credibility can be undermined, and emotional energy can be drained. Choosing silence preserves your integrity, your reputation, and your ability to think strategically. Craig Groeschel frequently emphasizes that long-term vision and influence are more important than short-term wins. By remaining silent, you safeguard your future relationships, opportunities, and emotional well-being. In practical terms, silence allows for strategic intervention. Once the initial emotional surge has passed, you can choose the most effective course of action. Perhaps you address the issue privately rather than publicly. Present your perspective calmly rather than defensively, or choose not to address it at all, because it doesn't warrant engagement. The key is that silence creates the space for intentional action rather than reactive behavior. Craig Groeschel often teaches that timing, clarity, and intention are more powerful than immediate reaction. By using silence strategically, you position yourself to achieve the best possible outcome. It's also worth noting that silence can transform the emotional atmosphere of a conflict. Tension, anger, and hostility are contagious. They spread from person to person. By refusing to react immediately, you introduce calm into the environment. Your silence can encourage reflection, reduce hostility, and create the conditions for a more constructive dialogue. Craig Groeschel frequently highlights that leaders have the ability to influence the emotional climate around them, and choosing silence at the right moment is a subtle but profound way to exercise that influence. Finally, silence in conflict demonstrates humility. It shows that you are not seeking to assert dominance or prove yourself in the moment. It communicates that your actions are guided by wisdom, not pride or ego. Craig Groeschel often emphasizes that humility is a hallmark of true leadership and maturity. By choosing silence in moments of disrespect, you are demonstrating that you value long-term outcomes and relationships over short-term emotional satisfaction. One of the most overlooked principles of emotional intelligence and spiritual maturity is the ability to discern which battles are worth engaging and which are better left alone. Groeschel consistently emphasizes that wisdom is not only about knowing how to respond, but also about knowing when not to respond at all. Choosing your battles wisely is a cornerstone of maintaining peace, protecting your integrity, and preserving your energy. Life is full of moments where we are disrespected, misunderstood, or challenged. But not every confrontation requires our engagement. The decision to respond or to stay silent is an intentional act of strategy, not weakness. Those who react to every perceived slight quickly find themselves drained, entangled in unnecessary conflict, and often regretting the words or actions they took in the heat of the moment. When you are disrespected, the instinct is often to defend yourself immediately. It feels urgent, personal, and sometimes even moral. Like if you don't speak up, you'll be letting someone walk over you. But Groeschel reminds us that not every moment of disrespect is a battle worth fighting. Some conflicts are small, temporary, or insignificant in the grand scope of your life. Reacting impulsively to every one of these moments wastes emotional energy, risks damaging relationships, and can distract you from more important priorities. Wisdom lies in evaluating each situation carefully. Will engaging bring resolution or escalate tension? Will it honor your values or compromise your integrity? Will it contribute to your long-term growth or pull you into unnecessary chaos? Choosing your battles wisely requires perspective. It's about seeing beyond the immediate sting of disrespect and asking yourself, does this matter in the long run? Some offenses may feel significant in the moment, but are trivial when measured against your overall life, relationships, and goals. By pausing to evaluate the true importance of the conflict, you conserve your emotional energy for battles that truly matter, situations where your response will produce meaningful outcomes. Groeschel often highlights that life is too short to expend energy on every slight, every disagreement, or every insult. The more strategic approach is to respond only when your intervention will create positive, constructive impact. Another aspect of choosing your battles wisely is understanding the nature of the conflict and the people involved. Some situations are fueled by misunderstanding, ignorance, or stress rather than malice. Others are intentionally provocative. Reacting impulsively in either case may not yield the results you desire. Silence allows you to assess the situation calmly, analyze the intentions and motivations of the other party, and determine whether engagement is likely to produce a constructive resolution. Groeschel frequently teaches that discernment, the ability to see the situation clearly and act intentionally, is a hallmark of maturity and leadership. Choosing your battles wisely is an application of discernment, a way to ensure that your energy is invested where it truly counts. It's also about protecting your personal peace. Not every disrespectful comment, action, or situation is worth disturbing your inner calm. Engaging in unnecessary battles can stir up anger, frustration, or resentment, which over time can erode your mental and emotional well-being. Silence, when used strategically, acts as a shield for your peace. It allows you to maintain composure, preserve emotional energy, and approach the situation with clarity if engagement is ultimately necessary. Groeschel often emphasizes that protecting your heart and mind is critical to living a life of purpose, influence, and fulfillment. Choosing battles wisely also means considering the long-term consequences of your response. Every word you speak and action you take has the potential to influence relationships, reputation, and future opportunities. Reacting impulsively to minor slights may satisfy an immediate emotional need, but it can damage credibility, trust, and respect over time. Conversely, responding selectively with wisdom and intentionality, reinforces your integrity and strengthens your reputation as someone who is thoughtful, measured, and reliable. Craig Groeschel consistently reminds audiences that influence is built not in moments of reaction, but through consistent character and prudent decisions. By choosing your battles carefully, you position yourself as someone who navigates life with intentionality and discernment, rather than being driven by every emotional impulse. Another important dimension of this principle is the impact on your relationships. Some conflicts are unavoidable, especially in close personal relationships or professional environments. But not every disagreement is worth escalating. By selecting battles wisely, you preserve the health of your relationships and create opportunities for constructive dialogue. In some cases, remaining silent or refraining from confrontation allows trust and respect to be maintained. In others, it provides space for the other person to reflect on their behavior and potentially make amends without defensiveness. Craig Groeschel often highlights that relationships flourish when they are approached with wisdom, patience, and a long-term perspective, rather than a short-term focus on proving oneself right. Choosing your battles wisely is also a demonstration of self-control and emotional mastery. Reacting impulsively may feel powerful momentarily, but it is often a reaction to pride, ego, or insecurity. Silence and selective engagement, on the other hand, are deliberate acts that require courage, restraint, and self-awareness. Craig Groeschel frequently underscores that true strength is not measured by how forcefully you can assert yourself, but by your ability to respond with composure, wisdom, and integrity. By choosing battles carefully, you exercise control over your actions, emotions, and ultimately, your destiny. In addition, this principle emphasizes the importance of focusing on what truly matters. Life presents countless opportunities for distraction, disagreement, and conflict. But the key to a fulfilling, purposeful life is to prioritize your time, energy, and attention. Not every slight deserves your response, and not every conflict requires engagement. Choosing battles wisely allows you to channel your energy toward pursuits that align with your values, goals, and vision. Craig Groeschel often reminds people that life is a series of decisions, and how we choose to invest our energy determines the quality of our relationships, our impact, and our sense of fulfillment. Finally, choosing your battles wisely is an act of maturity and spiritual discernment. It reflects a deep understanding that not every provocation requires reaction, and that silence can often be more powerful than words. It demonstrates that you value long-term peace, integrity, and influence over temporary gratification. Craig Groeschel consistently teaches that living a life of wisdom means making intentional choices, resisting impulsive reactions, and investing in what truly matters. Life will inevitably bring moments when we are disrespected, misunderstood, or challenged. In those moments, our instinct is often to react immediately, to defend ourselves, to fight back, or to prove a point. But real strength, true wisdom, and lasting influence are not found in reaction. They are found in restraint, reflection, and intentionality. Choosing silence after disrespect is not weakness. It is a conscious act of strength, a way to protect your reputation, maintain your peace, and respond with wisdom rather than emotion. When we pause, process our emotions, and choose our battles wisely, we reclaim control over our lives. Silence allows us to de-escalate conflict, safeguard relationships, and demonstrate maturity that commands respect without saying a word. It gives us space to act from our values rather than from our pride or anger. It allows us to influence situations constructively, protect our inner peace, and preserve the long-term legacy of our character. Every act of restraint, every moment of thoughtful silence is a building block in the life of integrity, leadership, and influence. By staying quiet after disrespect, we demonstrate that we are not defined by others' words or actions, but by the wisdom, composure, and values that guide our responses. It is in these moments of silence, in the deliberate choice to respond with wisdom rather than reaction, that we find true strength, lasting peace, and the ability to rise above every challenge that comes our way.